What is going on, everybody? Kevin Calhoun here. This is the Calhoun Show. Welcome aboard. If you're new, it's me. I'm talking sports, and I'm not alone because my good buddy Kyle Gregoire was in studio just a little while ago. We were talking Red Sox, a lot of baseball, some football, just a lot of life stuff because Kyle is one of my good friends, and it was great to have him in here. He won the 2017 Calhoun Show's Bracket Challenge. So he was the winner and therefore had a chance to come in studio and talk sports, which he didn't need to win the Bracket Challenge. I would have had him in anyway, but he did win the bracket, so he was here. And you guys will hear that talk coming up here in a little while. Now, guys, we're knee deep in it here. It's playoff time. There's playoff hockey on my TV. Right now, the Penguins and Blue Jackets happen to be the focus, as Kyle and I discussed very briefly earlier on. By the way, when I mentioned it later in the podcast, it was 0-0. Now, early in the podcast, it's 2-0. How does that work? Time is crazy. So, playoff hockey. This is the last night of the NBA as I sit here and record. Not ever, just for the regular season. And the Cavaliers seem uninterested in the 1 seed. The Celtics seem marginally interested as we sit here approaching halftime. This is a really fun time in the world of sports. And baseball's been great. The Mets are hitting like crazy. The Yankees are hitting like crazy. Pineda almost threw a no-hitter. There's a lot of fun things happening in the world of sports. So we have a few things to talk about. Now, number one, this is going to be probably not the last time on this podcast that I have to do this, but we are going to touch on one topic that we have to talk about every week because it's the NBA MVP race and it's just that important. Here is my closing argument. I have taken everything I've said about the NBA MVP talk and thrown it out the window. I am all in on Russ Westbrook. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows this. It's going to be huge. So I'm all in on Westbrook. However, I'm taking a step back. I'm going to take a step back and really evaluate James Harden's case. Because when it's laid out a certain way, it's really hard to argue against it. Houston has vastly outperformed what was expected of them coming into this season. Nobody certainly expected them to be a top 5 team in the NBA, and they might be better than that. Certainly nobody would have expected Harden to put up the numbers he's putting up. Maybe it's not a triple-double, but the argument can be made, how relevant is the triple-double? It's kind of a weird, arbitrary thing. I like it. I don't mind the triple-double. But I've had the triple-double in my life since I've started watching basketball. So it's just part of the vernacular for people our age. Maybe people that are older that remember the 60s that didn't have triple-doubles. Maybe it's different for you. I don't know. But what Harden's done has been crazy. And I'm not an analytics guy as far as basketball goes. I'm very little into analytics in any sport. I appreciate them, and I think that they're underappreciated by the generation prior to us. I think people that poo-poo analytics and advanced metrics and efficiency ratings and all of those things, I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you ignore those things. I think, like everything, they're good in healthy doses. And I don't pretend to understand all of them, but I do know that James Harden's numbers themselves are just off the charts better than everybody. Speaking of better than everybody, Stanley Cup reigning champion Pittsburgh Penguins now up 3-0. If they blow this game, it'll be embarrassing because I'm really happy right now. So anyway, Harden's numbers, I'm told, are efficient, and he's been great, and he really has. He makes all his teammates better. And what Russ is doing is different. It's heavy lifting. It's I put the team on my back type stuff. And he's done it. And he's done it beautifully. And he's got 3 50-point triple-doubles, which nobody's ever done ever. Had 3 of them. And he's done 3 in a season. And he's just putting up an absurd case for the MVP. Never mind the fact that they lose Kevin Durant and only win 7 less games. Or 8 less games. Whatever it's going to end up being. That's the best argument I've heard for Russ. Not the triple-doubles. It's that one thing. Durant goes, but the team keeps going. That's huge. And if it were me, if I had a vote, I would still vote for Westbrook. But I think people are doing a disservice to James Harden because everybody seems either pro or anti-Westbrook. There's not a ton of pro-Harden. It just feels like there should be. And I don't really care who wins, but we're going to remember Westbrook. We're certainly going to remember Westbrook. This was Westbrook, maniac, crazy, off the charts, going at it, balls to the wall every single night because he's pissed off and he's the Terminator, and it has been an absolute joy to watch for everybody. So I give him the MVP. That's all we're going to do on the MVP talk. We have so many other things to do. Let's start the show as we always do. This is the Calhoun Show. As always, you can follow the show on Twitter at Calhoun Show and email the show calhounshow@gmail.com. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to the show on YouTube, where every episode goes up in its entirety. But that's not the only place you can find us. You can obviously listen to the Calhoun Show on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud for free. And because it's free, because you love me, you're going to go to iTunes and leave a nice little 5-star rating and a review, because that helps push the show to more people. There's a voicemail line, 860-740-2119. It's open all the time. You can call it whenever you like, and you can follow me on Twitter at ShutUpCalhoun. So, this is a fun time of year. And it's a fun time because it's an overload. There's almost too much. There's almost too much sports. So, we have Major League Baseball is underway, and honestly, promising start to a young season. Baseball's fun right now. It really is. And if you're not in on baseball, it's time to start. And we'll get to the Kyle talk here in a little bit, because we definitely dive into baseball. So baseball's fun, and it's begun. The NHL, literally, as I said, is the playoffs are underway, and I'm a little concerned because Matt Murray's not playing. And it looked like they mentioned something injury in warmups. I've had it muted, so I don't have any information yet, but I'm going to look it up. So something going on with Matt Murray, because Fleury's in net, but it's 3-0. So the NHL playoffs are here, and if you're not a hockey fan, this is my yearly reminder. If you're not a hockey fan, do yourself a favor and set an alert on your phone. So pick a team in the playoffs that, whether you know something about them or you don't, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Just pick a team and set an alert for, close game with 5 minutes left, start of the third period, whatever it is. Or if you're just a fan or not a fan, if you're not a fan and you don't want to pick a team, just keep your eye on the scores. And when you see something has 4 minutes left and it's a 1-goal game, turn it on. If it's a 2-goal game, turn it on. Just do yourself that favor. If you're listening to this podcast, you either are just masochistic beyond belief or you like sports a little. I mean, it has to be one or the other, because there's really not a lot of anything else, unless for some reason you live for the 3 times a year my brother and sister are around to talk about movies. And if you're around for that, if that's why you're here, God bless you. It's why I'm here. But, I don't think there's a lot of that. People probably like sports a little. So you do yourself a favor, watch a little NHL playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs. It's the best playoff in sports. And I mean, sudden death, overtime can end on any shot. It's hard to beat. It's hard to beat because there's no clock. And baseball's playoffs are great too, but guess what? It's April, so relax. By the way, it is April, which means that twice this month I will be saying happy birthday to a sibling on the podcast, and today is the first one. Happy birthday, young Daniel. Danny's birthday is Friday. So if you're listening to this podcast on Thursday or Friday, I don't know what Danny's Twitter account is. To be honest, he doesn't either. So happy birthday, Danny. I say it on behalf of the listeners. Stephanie's is coming up as well. So mine too. April the 18th is my birthday. That's your... I want to delete this. I hate when people... All right, so I'm just going to tell this story. So I did that... All right, full disclosure, I did that so I could make a point. People that mention their birthday... I have a big problem with that. Put it on Facebook if you need people to know. Like, that's... I know I just did it, and it seems that way. But... Oh, it's a pet peeve. The worst, here's the worst, and I've said this on this podcast before, but I need to reiterate this. If you are listening to a podcast or listening to a radio show or watching something on TV where somebody gets this opportunity, it's way more often radio. Listen to a talk radio show, and you're going to get this call. Eventually, you're going to get this call. You're going to hear it. We'll say they're talking to me. Yeah, hey Kevin, it's good. It's great to talk to you. The first time, long time. Yeah, well, it's good to have you, Bob. What's going on? Well, it's my birthday today, and it's that open. You hear it all the time. Well, it's my birthday today. You're a grown ass man. You're in your 40s, and you are saying it's your birthday, so a radio host will say happy birthday to you. That's about the saddest thing I can hear. Like, there's very few things in the world that bother me as much as people that point out their own birthday to someone who doesn't know them or give a fuck that it's their birthday. What is that? And the radio host, what are they going to say? Oh, happy birthday, Bob. If I ever host a live radio show and somebody calls with their birthday, I'm hanging up. I'm doing it. I'm hanging up the phone. I'm not talking to them. Not doing it. Hanging up the phone. See ya. Can't do it. Grown men in their 40s calling radio shows asking strangers to give them a happy birthday. I take that back. Not asking. Just proclaiming it's my birthday. So please notice. Now that diatribe's over, we're very busy in this world of sports now this time of year. Obviously, baseball is back. Obviously, the NHL playoffs are on. And obviously, the NBA playoffs are a couple days away as we are in the final night of the regular season. And I mention that because as we sit here, we still do not know who the number one seed in the Eastern Conference is going to be. Now, as we enter tonight, Boston has the inside track. It's the last night of the season. If Boston wins, they're the one seed in the East, and Cleveland is going to be the two. Now, full disclosure, you guys already know the final scores of these games. Where I sit, Boston is tied at 58 in the third quarter, and Cleveland is down 12 to Toronto. So it looks like Boston will probably be the one seed. Here's why I don't think it matters. I really don't think it matters at all, because I don't think Boston's ever going to see Cleveland. More specifically, I should rephrase that in the better term. Cleveland is not going to see Boston. Cleveland is going to be just fine. They'll roll over the 7. They'll play a really tough matchup, honestly, whether they get Toronto or Washington. And that's where Boston goes. I was talking to Dan Condi about this earlier. I don't think the one seed matters to Cleveland. Well, I don't know what it means to themselves, but in the grand scheme, I don't think it matters to Cleveland that Boston's the one seed, because I don't think Boston gets by either Toronto or Washington. And if you listen to Simmons talk about Boston's cyclical shooting and you watch them play, when they're hitting shots, they're almost unbeatable. But if they miss shots, they lose games. And are you good enough to shoot that well against teams that are as good as Toronto and Washington are and win 4 out of 7 games? I don't think that they necessarily are. I think they definitely can win that series, but I would definitely lean on the 4 seed. And I was telling Dan, and he thought I was totally crazy, but I was telling him that I wouldn't count Chicago out against Boston. I just think Boston's a week 1. And yeah, Cleveland's probably a week 2. The Eastern Conference is weak as hell. These are teams with, low 50s in wins. 52 wins for Boston and 51 for Cleveland. That's a very small number, especially when you not only look at the results from the last couple of years, but you just look on the other side. You have Golden State at 66, San Antonio at 61, Houston at 54. 3 teams in the West, all with better records than the number 1 team in the East. So the West has always been stronger, at least it has been for the last 15 years pretty consistently, aside from LeBron James. Aside from LeBron James, the East has been very, very weak for a very long time. So it's starting to show again, and I do think Cleveland is going to be in the finals. I do. If they're not, I'll be surprised, but I would not pick Boston to be that team that does it instead of them. I would probably take Toronto, and then I would take Washington before I would take Boston. But either way, it's going to be fun, and we're going to get a resolution to this MVP thing, and we're going to get a resolution to, what Cleveland team is going to show up. Is it going to be the team that gave up 44 points in the fourth quarter against Atlanta and then lost in overtime. 44 points. They got outscored on Sunday 44-18 in the fourth quarter and got forced into overtime. That's really not a good sign. It's really not. But we know this team, and this team is resilient, and LeBron James just goes to the finals. That's what he does. His team plays in the finals. And until his team stops playing in the finals, I'm not going to stop picking him to go there. I think this is Golden State's to lose, and I think it was that last year, but it certainly is now with Durant. And you know what? It's probably going to be a blast, and it probably is going to be Golden State in the end, and I'm going to root for Cleveland because, I don't know, I can't get past LeBron. Saw him in person once, can't get over it. He's too good. Got to root for him. But I don't know. It's going to be a lot of fun as we come down and start the playoffs here before next week's podcast. So let's get to our guest for this week's episode of the podcast. He is the aforementioned KG, Kyle Gregoire, joining the podcast as the 2017 Calhoun Show Bracket Challenge winner, picked North Carolina to go to and win the national championship. And he did it correctly, and he won the pool. And the funny part about all of that is the story that goes along with it, and it's what we talked about first when he was just in here. So I will leave you guys with that. Here it is, Kyle Gregoire joining me here on The Calhoun Show.
The Calhoun Show.
All right. Joining me somehow for the first time in studio, the winner of our 2017 NCAA tournament bracket, Mr. Kyle Gregoire.
Hello.
One of our three Kyles.
Yes.
And that is the only proper way to introduce you, is one of this show's three Kyles. And a thank you for all of the things that you do. You send me things all the time. You email, you post on the Facebook page. You're one of my favorite people. And it's awesome to have you in the studio.
Well, funny thing, Kev, you're one of my favorite people. I greatly appreciate your commitment to this, and it brings people together. It's fun.
So UNC wins the championship, but that's not the story, and nor did I know it was the story until you got here and told me the story. Do you want to tell the story of what actually happened?
The hot take, as Calhoun says.
Yes. Here's the scoop. This is scoopage that you have right here. This is a big story.
This is deep inside scoop. Yes. So when I was setting on my bracket, I was at work, and I have a keyboard that has a little number pad on the side, and I was filling it out, put UNC at the top, and I was filling in the total score, and that, that's the tiebreaker for how people win. And I punched it in, didn't think a thing of it, logged back in later. Turns out I thought the total score was going to be 10. I flubbed the digit. I meant to do 120 or 130 or something. So
if anybody was close to you in score with UNC,
if somebody put 11 and picked UNC 2, they would have won.
That would have been the longest shot in history.
But I had the foresight somehow to choose UNC, and nobody else did.
Yep. So we are the two winners of the Calhoun Show's Bracket Challenge. We're the only two people that have ever done it. It's impressive.
Unfortunately, you won't be listening to me talk to myself this year. No. But it's okay. I'm talking to Kevin.
Oh, the talking to yourself episode. That was classic. Anyway, so Kyle and I have had many different sports bonding moments over the years. We've watched a lot of sports together. Mm-hmm. Number one, however, as far as your loves go, would be your Red Sox.
Definitely.
And growing up, my Red Sox, too.
Yeah, as time has gone by, I pay attention to every sport, but I wouldn't say I follow any particular teams beyond the Red Sox. So baseball really is my prime sport. I really get heavy into it.
How do you feel about the Red Sox this year?
I feel great. It's young. They're really fun to watch, energetic. Love seeing that the outfielder wind dance they do after every game. It might get old at some point, but I enjoy it right now. And I obviously Poppy gone is going to be huge, but there's Petey still around, going to bring the team together. Got some the great core group of pitchers. Few liabilities here and there, but they can't fall too sharply from last year, I feel.
I think any Red Sox pitcher watched the Mets score 14 runs on a Clay Buchholz start last night and they all feel perfectly fine about themselves at this point.
Quick side note on Clay Buchholz.
Yes.
Just got injured.
Oh.
Out for probably months.
That
Good riddance.
The least surprising news of the baseball this young baseball season so far. So I spent the entire summer thinking that Ortiz was going to come back, and then at a certain point, it was like obvious. It was like, all right, now he's actually done. Were you thinking?
I was confident he wasn't going to pull a Favre, but that doesn't mean I didn't want him to.
That's fair.
I just felt looking at after he retired, I went back one time and looked at his numbers, and I'm like, he could still contribute so much, but I understand he's been just grinding it out. Kind of similar to you go to school as a kid, kindergarten, and if people go to college, every single year, every single hour, is devoted to this since you're a kid. And Poppy, since he was a kid, been working hard so long. I understand he has a young family and wants to step away and enjoy his post-baseball life.
And with Ortiz gone and Pablo Sandoval in, it's just same thing, same player. Panda. Yeah, it's the exact same same result.
I'm high on Panda. He had a lot of time off last season to mentally prepare for this season. I mean, physically too. Obviously, he looks great, and really hope he brings some character to the team too.
That would be nice. And between him and Hanley, they should be able to hit at least try and hit some home runs.
If Pablo can at least get back to 2080 home run RBI form as he's easily done in the past, that's great contribution. And see what happens.
So, Red Sox are number one. We know that. We've been to one Red Sox game together or two?
Two.
Two.
I
okay,
believe,
two.
We saw him. Actually, Red Sox Mets 2009.
Yep.
And Red Sox Indians with
I don't think
the Desmond brothers.
Oh, that's right. I thought that was that's right.
Cleveland. I don't know what year that was. That was probably 2012 or 2013.
It was probably somewhere in there.
But it's been a little while.
It has been a while. Yeah. I haven't been to Fenway in a little while. We saw Citi Field and Yankee Stadium last year. I had not been to either. Great. I had not been to either one of them, and I mean, the Yankees. Have you been to the new or old?
Neither.
I didn't get to the old. The new Yankee Stadium. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But Citi Field is something else. Now,
I really want to go to Citi Field this year.
The one difference is I saw Citi Field at night and we saw a day game at Yankee Stadium. So I don't know if that makes any difference.
Could change things,
but maybe a little bit. But Citi was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah,
that's a great ballpark. So Red Sox being your number one, but you still had a decent Super Bowl. You associate
By birth,
yourself.
I am a Patriots fan. My father's from New Hampshire, and the world ended in Boston, and all my allegiances come down from there. And no, I was definitely rooting for the Pats. It's great to see. I really was much more of a Patriots fan in the early to mid 2000s, but I still follow them. I still enjoy watching them. There's a few players I really root for.
So, did you give up at halftime? Were you invested? I know you're a fringe Patriots fan at this point in your life. At this point in your life, you care way more about a lot of other things than the Patriots. But were you invested? Were you bummed at halftime?
I was quite bummed.
Okay.
I didn't feel great.
That makes me feel worse. That makes me feel worse actually, knowing that
I didn't feel great. I was actually texting back and forth with my dad. I think as the generations have come down from my grandfather to my father to me, we've become a little less fervent of fans. I can guarantee my grandfather, ripping mad, probably shut it off halfway through the second quarter. My dad waited till halftime, and then he said he actually switched to watching the movie Casablanca.
That's hilarious.
At halftime.
That's hilarious.
I started texting him back in the third quarter, but by then he's like, yeah, if they win, great, I'm going to bed.
That's amazing.
But no, Sarah and I were over a friend's place watching, and I wanted to stay the whole time. It goes so late anyway. I was already so invested.
Yeah.
I was disappointed, but stuck it through. Oh, it was pretty sweet though.
Yeah, I was with our mutual friend Dan Condi, who we both just saw, and actually everyone listening to the podcast knows who Dan is. Dan was just over here. He and I are working on something we will tell everybody about at some point.
4th and 1.
Yeah, at 4th and 1 Sports on Twitter. Go follow Dan. Dan and I were watching it at his house with his lovely wife and their amazing young son. And at halftime, it was like, all right, well, I'm going to go home and get some sleep. F this. You know what I mean? So I got home and put the game on and just turned the surround sound up and just started getting ready for bed. I was brushing my teeth. Then it was like touchdown. I was like, all right, I'll go sit down and watch, see what happens. And then 2 hours later, you're sitting there enthralled by the greatest comeback ever. It was great, but Tom Brady is do you just assume he's just going to play forever as a Patriots fan? Is that luxury good?
I assume he's going to, I mean, he's not one of those guys I feel like you're going to have to scoop up his body parts off the field kind of guy.
Yeah.
But he's going to play, I feel like, for a long time. What is he? Is he 39?
39 now?
Yeah.
I think he's 39.
I would say at minimum till 42 or 43. He might, maybe if we circle back to our Poppy talk, he gets to a certain point. He's had so much success. I think it also depends on Belichick too. That's, he's not that old, but he might want to change too.
As a non-Patriots fan, it scares me because I think you're right. I think Brady and Belichick are a package deal.
Yeah.
But I think Brady
at this point
is so obsessed with, he does his own lifestyle. At 39, he looks like he's 32 playing the game, right? I think it's just a middle finger, and I don't think he wants to put it down.
Yeah.
Like, I think he wants to, and I think as long as Brady's that guy, I don't think Belichick has any.
His draft pick, is playing over and over in his head.
I don't think there's any reason Belichick would retire. As long as Brady's this guy, then you're not a sixth ring for the 6th round pick, right?
Because it doesn't seem like there's any plan for a post either of them era, post Belichick, post Brady era. So you got to give them at least another 2 years to get a structure going and go from there.
We shall see. Are you invested at all in the NBA or the NHL playoffs? Like, do you have a dog in the fire? Are you a Celtics Bruins guy, or just kind of enjoy watching a little bit here and there?
I'll admit I don't think I've watched either Bruins or Celtics. A collective hour between the two of them. But I have at least been going online and checking up on the C's. I do enjoy hockey, but I haven't been following the Bruins. But I've been keeping up on records and stats for the Celtics, and it was nice to see them creep in first. Yeah,
actually, as you and I are sitting here, it's almost 8:00 on Wednesday, and in the next 3 hours, we'll find out if they have home court. I was telling Dan before we were recording, the Celtics are fun. I don't think the 1 seed matters because I don't think they're going to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals anyway.
No,
I think they're a year away.
It counts for a little bit, in the first
that means
round,
something for sure. Of course, yeah.
And this is with limited knowledge. Me saying this, but it seems like Celtics do have a ton of upside, but they're gonna run into teams where they're gonna lose steam, have significant matchup problems this far into the season, and just getting wear down.
The Celtics are super reliant on shooting the ball from the outside.
Yeah,
and I was listening
inside matchup problems.
Yeah, Bill Simmons was talking about this on his podcast the other day. He basically said when they don't make threes, they don't win, and you're not going to make all your threes, and eventually you're not going to win. So I don't know. I don't know
how many of those players, at least the starters, have been through a lot of playoff games, I don't really know off the top of my head. Probably not a lot. NHL and NBA, a lot of teams get in the playoffs. A lot of guys move around. You have some experience, but at least as a unit together, they don't have a ton of experience going for them to be able to combat some of the issues they got going on.
It was weird because they, at the trade deadline, everybody was kind of waiting to see who was going to be the team that was like, all right, we're going. We're doing it now. And the Celtics have the Brooklyn pick, and they have all these picks, and they were like, we're not. And yet they still managed to get to the 1 seed. So,
I was almost pulling for like a Bogut coming to them.
That would have been cheap too. That would have been nice.
I was surprised, but you shouldn't expect every team, even if it's your team, to go for something every deadline.
No, well, this time next year they will be a team that is in, because they'll have, is it Malik Monk or Lonzo, whoever it is, they're going to have somebody.
Yeah.
All right. What else you got? Is there anything you want to discuss here on the on your first non-voicemail appearance on the Calhoun Show? This is open it up to the guests without telling you I was going to do that.
Well, if we just circle back to the Sox for a moment,
yes.
they got a really good group of young players, and Brock Holt.
Yeah,
Give him some
Brockstar.
more playing time, man.
Brockstar.
I want to see more of him. As much as you can throw at me with Brock Holt, love to see what he can do, because he got that All-Star nod the other year, then had to take a little bit of a back seat, and I don't know what his future holds. I'm much higher on him than some other Sox guys, younger guys that have been hanging around, say like a Josh Reddick. Some people are like, oh, why'd you let him go? It's all right. But Holt is really valuable. Hold on to him. In Reddick or some other guys, you had these other people hanging around. Like you had J.D. Drew hanging around in right field.
J.D. Drew.
Please,
J.D.
keep
Drew.
Reddick. But they didn't decide to. And,
get out of here, J.D. Drew. Jason Bay. You want Jason Bay back?
Jason Bay.
Oh boy. Oh man, Jason Bay.
Not after what I saw he did with the Mets. No. I did enjoy him at the time.
I was texting with one of our other Calhoun Show's Kyle's, and one that you know very, very well. Mm-hmm. Our friend Kyle, who is a diehard Mets fan.
Yep.
And he and I bond over the Mets weekly for sure, sometimes daily. And I felt bad about it, and especially since he's hit 4 home runs in like the last 2 days, I compared Jay Bruce to Jason Bay. It's just like the guy just annoyed me since the Mets traded for him.
It's funny you said that, because I didn't make that immediate connection in my head, but when you were mentioning Jason Bay, I just had a picture of Duda pop in my head.
Lucas Duda.
Oh, God.
Lucas Duda, good for a 500-foot home run once every 4 months when he's healthy.
Yeah.
That's the story of Lucas. And the Mets gave him a pay raise this year, by the way. Did you know that? The Mets gave him a pay raise this year. The Mets are something. They're good, but they're something. And
that actually brings me, I guess, to the Mets. They're a team. They're sort of a back burner team for me. In most sports I follow, I have a primary team, even if I'm not really hard on them.
Yep.
But for baseball, I'd say I'd like to follow the Mets more as sort of a secondary team, especially because you're a big fan now, and we got McGowan, and I'm not going to be hugely rooting for him, but keep tabs on them, see what's going on. Those say there's a run of disappointing Red Sox game, I can turn to something.
Yeah, for sure. And the Mets were always a funny one for me, because I was a Red Sox fan growing up, but I went to way more Met games. We went to Shea all the time. So I always had the Mets were my NL team. Like that was why I went and saw them all the time. We saw Mo Vaughn hit a 500-foot home run. He hit it. I don't know if you remember Shea. He hit it halfway up the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's on YouTube. You can go find it. It's ridiculous. So, yeah, I mean, we had a lot of fun at Mets games, and so I've always associated with them. And then when they started drafting the young pitchers, even though they were dismal 3-4 years ago, you're reading, and obviously it's funny that Zach Wheeler's just now getting to them.
Yep.
But you're DeGrom and Harvey and Syndergaard, like this is going to be fun. And I watched them when they lost 105 games for whatever they did 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But I watched them, and I was like, I have to pay the price, right? Because I'm kind of changing. The Red Sox, Pedro, like that was my Red Sox team. I loved 13 was great. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun. It was a throwback for me to kind of re-fall in love. And I was in a hotel in Pennsylvania when Victorino hit the grand slam, and I'm screaming silently into a pillow because I'm in a hotel at 11 o'clock at night and everybody's sleeping. So like that was a fun throwback. But yeah, this Mets team definitely has my my attention. It's a lot of fun to watch.
I get what you mean with the Red Sox. I felt a piece of me, or at least my Red Sox fandom, go away a little bit when Tech retired. And
Tech was a big one too.
Poppy's out of here. Tech was a big one.
Tech was a big one too.
Poppy gone. There's at least solace in Pedroia hanging about. Going back to my comment on Brady, I think Pedroia is going to be one of those guys you're going to have to scoop off the field.
That might be true.
But as with every team, times change, and as in your case, you got to pay the price. You got to go through a little suffering, earn your way into that fandom.
Well, Pedroia might have to get scooped off the field because they certainly traded his replacement for Chris Sale. They definitely traded his replacement for Chris Sale, so that must have been a nice little vote of confidence for him, too, definitely. For Petey. And he had 4 hits last night, so going well.
Definitely.
So, Mr. Gregoire.
Yeah.
This has been a pleasure.
Really was.
This is not the last time you will be on the show.
I hope not.
We'll see you soon. Thank you, sir. Congratulations on the bracket win.
I appreciate it. It's been my year. Football, and now the bracket.
All right, somehow. So if you want to invest in my Pittsburgh Penguins starting tonight on opening night of the Stanley Cup playoffs, we'd love to have you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. we
got the game on now. It's scoreless in the first, so we shall see. All right, Mr. Gregoire. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The Calhoun Show, indeed, Patrick. All right, thank you, KG. Again, Kyle Gregoire, for joining the podcast today, and congratulations on winning the 2017 Calhoun Show Bracket Challenge. It's surprising and disappointing in myself that I hadn't gotten Kyle on the show yet, at least in studio. So that's my bad, but it won't be the last time we have him in. Now, speaking of having people in the studio, we started this podcast talking NBA, right? We're in the playoffs, or at least we will be in a day. And what does that mean? What do we do on this show when big things happen in basketball? We call in the big guns. So don't you fret, my friends. Over the next couple of months, we will have a steady diet of our regulars here on this podcast. We'll get Brett on the podcast. We'll get Dan in studio. And maybe, just maybe, I want to get a couple of my boys back on. Maybe we'll check in with our logo creator, Andy, and our music producer, Patrick. We'll get those boys maybe on the phone or over Skype or something here on the podcast in the next couple of months. So there's a lot of things happening, and this is a little bit of a shorter podcast this week. It's a little late here on the East Coast. I didn't get back home until later this afternoon to do the podcast. So cutting it a little bit short here tonight, but just going to leave you wanting more. So first off, we can't go without mentioning the Masters. Sergio Garcia finally gets a major. It was a great watch. It would have been great to see him close it on 18, but it was fitting that he had to overcome that demon as well to miss a putt to win the Masters, and then to go into a playoff and actually do the damn thing. So it was really cool to see Sergio win. As we are 2 weeks away now from the NFL draft, that's something that we're going to start keeping our eye on. And do yourself a favor. If you want a good chuckle, just pay attention to the wording of the things that come out. I saw tweets this morning about Mike Mayock's top 5 draft prospects, and it literally had the words, big changes to Mike Mayock's top 5. Like, these kids are doing something in early April that's changing their draft stock. Like, I don't understand. None of it makes any sense. It's all ratings driven, but I'm going to watch the draft. So who the hell am I to talk? I'm a hypocrite. So that's it for the podcast for this week. Thank you again to KG for coming on. It was a blast having him in studio, and a good job on the bracket there. Yeah, there's a bunch of things in the works, and I'm not going to tell anybody about any of them for now. But as things happen, I will obviously be talking about it here on the Calhoun Show. So thank you again. And if you're new to the podcast, welcome aboard. Hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoy this podcast and would like some other people to listen to it because you want your friends to be happy, and if this will make them happy, tell them to listen to us. I would sure appreciate it. All right, everybody. Thank you. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you next week. See ya.
Thank you for listening to The Calhoun Show. Join the conversation by following the show on Twitter @Calhoun Show and emailing the show at calhounshow@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, and don't forget to subscribe and download for free on iTunes. Want to hear yourself on the show? Leave us a voicemail by calling 860-740-2119.